Good morning. Welcome to the Weather Desk. I'm Meteorologist Craig Moeller. It is so good to be with you on this Friday. We've been feeling great all morning here at 13 News Now. That's where we broadcast from our studios in Southeast Virginia, in Norfolk, specifically serving Southeast Virginia and Northeast North Carolina. Here on the Weather Desk, so we don't just focus on the Hampton Roads weather. We will talk a lot about that, but we have other things that we're watching as well across the country and around the world. We're going to start off with news from Venezuela on the earthquake recovery. There have been rescue efforts going on, search and rescue, and we'll talk about where they are with that. We have the latest on the Cottonwood fire out in Utah. I used to live right at the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon, very familiar with Salt Lake and Utah. Beautiful, just gorgeous country out there, but obviously wildfires doing a number there, and we'll keep you updated on that. In addition, I've got the U.S. Drought Monitor. It came out yesterday, and we spent time a little bit yesterday talking about the difference for Hampton Roads between the previous update and where we are now. We've had some heavy rain here, and we are seeing some improvements. But what about the rest of the country? I'll show you that coming up. We're also going to track the tropical development out there right now. Not a lot happening in the Atlantic. We'll talk about why, and then we'll get into what is starting to develop and continue to watch in the Pacific. Then we have our weather impact alert for Saturday here in Hampton Roads. We are bracing for severe storms. I'll let you know what other parts of the country could see some rough weather. And I've got the weekend outlook. Plenty to talk about. Another dangerous heat wave building, not only today and tomorrow. Today's going to be hot, low 90s, but we're talking upper 90s to near 100 by the end of next week. So more on that. All right, but we're going to start off with that tough news as we've been tracking seismic activity and earthquakes. We'll turn our attention back to Venezuela, and we have this earthquake here within the last 12 hours. Not as powerful as the twin earthquakes that took place within a minute of each other. Two major earthquakes just off to the southwest of this center. And you can see this one this morning occurred just a little bit after midnight, their local time. Depth of 6 miles, and that was 4.4 on the scale. Remember, Venezuela got hit by back-to-back earthquakes on Wednesday, and the second tremor was the most powerful to shake that region in more than a century. We know at least 235 people are now confirmed dead, but that number is expected to climb into the thousands. More than 4,000 others are injured. John Loring reports.
Utter devastation in Caracas, Venezuela, which went from this to this after two earthquakes struck Wednesday.
All the walls were cracked. We managed to open the door however we could. There was a cloud of smoke that wouldn't let us see. And when we went downstairs, the scene was like a horror movie.
Many people are missing or remain trapped beneath the rubble.
It's hard not being able to do anything or get news about your family. Your hands are tied when you're here. How do you get around or find out how they're doing?
While volunteers are distributing much-needed supplies, including food, the U.S. is among the countries providing assistance to Venezuela, including $150 million in aid, according to the State Department.
We're already deploying search and rescue teams from Fairfax County, Virginia, and Los Angeles. There'll be some others we'll add. That's their most immediate need right now, is search and rescue efforts.
Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, said in a statement the priority is, quote, focused on expediting operational decision-making to safeguard the lives of the population and assist the affected families.
Everybody is just completely devastated.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
As we mentioned, help from Virginia is now heading to Venezuela. 79 members of Virginia Task Force 1 are on the way to help with search and rescue efforts. Their flight took off just a couple hours ago. The team is based out of Fairfax County and will be joined by 6 dogs. Operation Blessing, based in Virginia Beach, is also sending a team to Venezuela. That team will help with medical conditions there. They're going to include a medical doctor, a chef, and a clean water expert. Once they touch down, they will begin assessing the damage to see which areas need the most help. All right, when we come back, wildfires are still burning across Utah. A look at the progress crews are making, putting them out. Plus, drought conditions fueling those flames. How it's impacting one family farm this growing season. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. We're going to take a look at Utah and Beaver County here in Utah. It has been a tough go. Crews across the country are battling wildfires, but in Utah, the Cottonwood fire could end up being the most catastrophic in state history. This is a look at the damage in Beaver County. More than 1,000 firefighters have been working to put out the fire since Monday. Since then, the flames have scorched more than 70,000 acres, and the fire is 0% contained. Investigators suspect it may have been caused by humans. About 3 hours north of the Cottonwood fire, people who live in Eureka are starting to return to their homes after the Iron Fire forced them to evacuate. The fire has burned more than 40,000 acres and is 26% contained. Jeremy Toombs reports.
It's hard for many from Eureka to put into words what the last several days have been like.
Never experienced it, never thought of it. It was very humbling.
Kimberly Clem was among the hundreds on the outside looking in, having left with nothing but her son, her dog, and the clothes she had on.
That night was horrible, but then each day as it goes, you know, it says the wind could change and that it could come back.
So when they learned they could finally go home,
it's like a parade trying to get in.
Cars lined the road for a reopening that wasn't as grand.
It's usually a 10-minute drive from Alberta, but it's an hour the other way.
Thanks, guys. As it was relieving. They got out and saw the Tintic hillsides surrounding them scorched by flame, but they were heartened to find their homes just how they left them.
It's good to be home. Good to be home.
Bob Trepanier was down in the coal mines in Salina when the town got evacuated. So to walk these steps,
A little bit of ash on the porch.
Even as the smell of smoke lingered, it was a breath of fresh air.
Home sweet home.
The view won't be what they remembered.
I mean, the mountains behind my house are my happy place, and I always say the only constant is change.
But Shelley Stansfield owns the company store on Main Street and says their sense of place trumps all in this moment.
Need the business, please support local. However, again, we're just lucky to have a place to go home to.
You know, when you live in the hills or the mountains, it's nice, but it's not without risk.
As the fire still burns on somewhere over these ridge lines, that's a risk they're happy they can keep living with.
You never know what life's going to throw at you. You never know.
All right, so we've had all of this fire out in Utah, these wildfires that we've been watching carefully, and we'll continue to watch it, but look at why they have this fire danger out there. Red flag warnings up parts of Oregon, Idaho, Nevada, Utah, Colorado. You can see New Mexico, much of Arizona, and even parts of California, all dealing with gusty winds, low humidity, and very dry fuels or dry ground. Now, the reason for that, again, there's been so much drought. There's been widespread drought conditions that have been fueling those wildfires. And as we take a look now at the latest drought monitor, there is still extreme drought from around the Salt Lake Valley just to the south of the lake, over the Ochre Mountains, and then back out through the West Valleys and the deserts there. And again, around Beaver County, they still have extreme drought. That is for the southern part of the Wasatch. It looks like Cedar City, that area is in a little bit better shape. As we take a look, St. George is also in better shape. Out towards Colorado, there's still exceptional drought for the mountains and areas just off to the west there of Denver. So we're going to continue to watch that. Parts of Nebraska also still under exceptional drought. But other areas have been seeing a little bit of relief, and some great news here in the southeast U.S. All that heavy rain from what was Tropical Storm Arthur, that has really made a huge dent. This was exceptional drought not too long ago, and now they've really made up for it. They're in good shape. For our area, I mentioned yesterday, we had, going into this latest drought monitor update, we had parts of the northern neck that were under extreme drought, and from Suffolk and areas out to the west, this also was shaded red, extreme drought. They are now downgraded to just severe. And I know that doesn't sound great, but that is a big step in the right direction. And this drought monitor here does not even account for the heavy rain that we saw Tuesday. So I'm hopeful next week when we get out the newest drought monitor that'll come out next Thursday. I think we'll see more of this area kind of shaded in moderate drought. Some areas may be taken down to abnormal dry. That would be great. So we'll see how things play out. All right, so we've been watching all of this. Again, the drought in Colorado has gotten bad enough that one family farm is making a big sacrifice. The owners of Sunrise Farm in Severance say they won't be able to sustain a pumpkin patch this year because they won't receive critical irrigation water in August, which is absolutely crucial growing time for the pumpkins.
This year is dramatically different. You know, talking to my husband who grew up on this farm, he does not remember another year water was in such short supply. We're praying for some great moisture this summer and over the winter, a really great snowpack.
Without reliable irrigation, the family says planting thousands of pumpkins would be too financially risky this year. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're tracking the tropics, what's happening in the Atlantic and the Pacific. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. Here's what's going on in the tropics. Our headlines: it's all quiet in the Atlantic. There's really nothing going on right now. That's good news. There's a reason for it. We'll talk about it. And tropical development is more likely in the eastern Pacific. So while the Atlantic's quiet, there's something that we're watching pretty carefully in the eastern Pacific. Now, keep in mind, we are just putting the wraps on June, headed towards July 1st on Wednesday. So not too much time left in June. And this is a time of year where we don't typically get a lot of activity. We did have Arthur here in the Atlantic Basin. But as we get into July, a little more activity typically with some tropical storms potentially picking up that activity. There have been a few hurricanes. And then as we get into August, this is where the action really ramps up, the peak coming that first week of September and then winding down through October into November. Things quiet down considerably. Let's take a look at what's happening or not happening right now in the Atlantic Basin. You can see how clear the Gulf is and the Caribbean really looking good as well. Again, around Venezuela, we talked about the earthquake. At least the weather is really cooperative for them in their recovery and rescue efforts going on. Down around Panama, a little bit of storminess down to the south, a little bit of convection or clouds anyway showing up south of Cuba, but there is nothing showing any signs of development. We had that big plume of Saharan dry air and dust come off Africa and work across the Atlantic Basin with the trade winds. There's just nothing going on right now. That's great. Let's hope that continues for a while. Nothing expected over the next 7 days. As we turn our attention to the eastern Pacific, we do need to watch an area here that earlier this morning actually had an 80% chance of development over the next 7 days. As this works to the west, it's interesting. I checked right before the start of the show, and the Hurricane Center knocked this back to a 70% chance. So it's actually lowered a little bit since earlier this morning. That's what's happening at this point. Not a threat to any land, but again, Hawaii's out there. We always keep an eye to things if they develop as to see where things might go. Right now, plenty of time to watch it, and the Hurricane Center taking it from 80 to 70% the chances for development. All right, we're going to look across the country right now and get into the severe weather outlook. And as we do, we're going to keep a close eye to storms that are developing. I want to remind you before we dive into the severe weather outlook across the country, if you want to know more about the Atlantic and what's happening in the Pacific, I'll tell you the place to go for tropical updates, Hurricane Hub Live. Tim Pandages, our chief meteorologist, does a phenomenal job with a super deep dive. He has all kinds of trivia and interesting facts about hurricanes. And I'll tell you, once things do start to ramp up and we will get more activity later in the year, the amount of detail he goes into and the depth that he goes into on this tropical coverage is awesome. So check it out. You can scan that QR code. Again, download the app and check out Hurricane Hub Live weeknights at 8 o'clock. All right, so right now, nothing tropical to worry about. We do have some heavy rains across parts of Missouri, back across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, some more scattered wet weather down around the panhandle of Florida, a little bit more back in the northwest. Nothing really crazy here. We've got frontal boundary kind of draped across the country and working into the northeast. We also have a frontal boundary down to the south. High pressure's been trying to control things. We've had a couple really nice days, but as this front gets a little closer and kind of settles in, that ridge breaks down, there's going to be more opportunity for severe storms in this part of the country. We're going to watch for that. So that's where we find our level 2 threat, that slight risk, level 2 of 5, and we also have a slight risk up across much of Montana into northeast Wyoming and western South Dakota. Now, marginal risk in green, yeah, there's a chance. That includes areas of central and northern Virginia, so this is a little closer to home here in Hampton Roads. I can tell you we don't have to worry about hail anywhere around the mid-Atlantic. Back here in the Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle region, back up through eastern Colorado, better chances for hail from Rapid City to Billings. Strong winds would be the greatest concern if we do have some stronger storms. And then we have to watch right here for some tornadic development. There is that second elevated tier. That includes places like Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Paducah, Kentucky, Madisonville, Evansville, up to French Lick, Indiana, Larry Bird's hometown, Louisville, Kentucky, and Elizabethtown. So those areas needing to watch for that. As for us, tomorrow, slight risk here. That's why we have our weather impact alert. We'll talk about that in more detail coming up a little bit later from the weather desk. Again, wind's the primary concern. Hail and tornadoes much farther to the west. All right, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the weekend outlook for Hampton Roads and that big warm-up next week. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. I wanted to talk about the extreme heat risk for next week, especially the 3rd and 4th of July. I think it's going to be plenty hot on the 2nd as well, getting into the mid to upper 90s, but even hotter as we head towards the 3rd, potentially the 4th, scorching as well. So let's take a look at the outlook with the temperatures potentially across the region. We are going to see those temperatures climbing up. Again, 97 on Thursday, 100 on Friday, 97 on the 4th. That is what our models are suggesting. There's time for that to change a little bit, but the bottom line is serious heat in the forecast. Take a look at our severe storm outlook for late Saturday. Again, scattered afternoon and evening showers and storms, damaging winds, heavy downpours. Stay weather aware. It is so important. So as I mentioned, we do have that high risk of heat building. We'll deal with the storms Saturday, and then the heat builds into the following weekend. Things may come down a little bit Sunday into Monday, but that's going to be a potentially dangerous situation. We will be monitoring those temperature trends carefully for you. All right, this afternoon, maybe a couple stray showers or storms. Not a lot of activity for Hampton Roads, but you might see something around the region. Overnight and into early Saturday, a few passing showers, mainly inland this evening, and then as we get into early Saturday, there might be a shower or two in the morning. I'm not too worried about it, but there could be. During the afternoon, different story. Scattered wet weather develops during the early to mid-afternoon, and then we're going to see heavier storms developing late afternoon and into the evening. Those storms right there, which will clear the area by early to mid-evening, those are the ones that I am most concerned with for damaging gusty winds and very heavy rain. As we look ahead to Sunday, not looking too bad either. I think we'll see a few isolated showers or storms potentially, but not as widespread as the activity we see on Saturday. Right now, folks out enjoying the surf there at the First Street Jetty. You can see it's a beautiful Thompson Creek Window Company sky view. Dew points getting up into the low 70s. The heat is building. Temperatures at the beaches near 90. Very high UV index. Rip current threat is low. On the water, winds a little bit lighter, but maybe gusty this afternoon, up to about 20 knots on the ocean waters, seas running 2 to 3 feet. All right, as we take a look at the forecast across the area, highs today, lower 90s for most of the south side. For the peninsula, also low to mid 90s, 93 at Gloucester, 89 at Matthews, upper 80s for the eastern shore. At the Outer Banks, we're going to find temperatures in the upper 80s, low 90s inland. Do keep an eye for a few stray storms down to the southwest. Overnight tonight, lows near 75. Tomorrow, that chance for scattered afternoon storms. That's why we have our weather impact alert. You can see the temperatures will be cooling a little bit into Monday, but heating up once again. Want to remind you, you can always get the latest news, traffic, and weather on the go with the 13 News Now app. Scan that QR code on your screen. Download the app now. It's free and available on the app Store and Google Play. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. Let your friends and folks know about what we do here every weekday morning starting at 9. And be sure and have our streaming app downloaded so you can continue to watch us as weather develops.